Hi and welcome to the channel. So in this video I'm going to show you everything I know about fire management, how to control it, what you should be burning, the type of wood, the temperatures, how you wanted to control the airflow, absolutely everything you need to know about offset. You're watching Big Al's Barbecue, let's get to it. Okay, so I guess the first thing to really understand is what exactly an offset smoker is and how it makes such fantastic barbecue. There's lots of other different smokers out there. You've got pellet, you've got gravity, you've got drums. There's tons of different ones out there. But this is the only one that will pass that initial stage, and to be honest, you can still use wood for that initial stage, but I don't, I use charcoal. But once you get past that initial stage, this is the only method, the only form of smoker that you're going to use 100% real hardwood splits on. So let's understand how a smoker actually works. So you've got the firebox here, and where you're going to be burning a very small but very hot fire. Then that then flows, both the smoke and the heat flows through the cook chamber and then goes out the stack. So on the stack you've got a dampener here which you can control the airflow with, and then on the side of the firebox you've also got air vents which you can again control the airflow on that. So let's have a look at the setup of this cook chamber. I mean, there's nothing in here at the moment, we're just preheating. But as you can see, so you've got the firebox there. There is a hole in the side of the firebox, which is there. You can see that, just there. And then you can see I've got a baffle plate here. So what happens is that the heat comes out and the smoke comes out of the firebox, hits that and deflected down. Then I've got 4 baffle plates, and what that helps do is kind of like disturb the airflow, so it makes it go round in vortexes, in circles. So it doesn't matter where I place my meat, then it will basically get a really good distribution of air, because what you don't want in smoke, so what you don't want is for your smoke and heat to come in here, come straight up the top and then go straight out of your stack. That's bad. So what this helps do is just create vortexes in your cook chamber, so that wherever you're cooking your meat it gets a decent distribution of heat and smoke. This is also where I put my, if I'm cooking and I'm going to put a water pan in there, where it's water or apple juice or wherever I'm cooking, that's where I put it. So it's got the closest to the firebox. I generally don't cook here because it's just too hot. If I was doing 225 and doing it slow, it might be okay, but if I'm doing 275, which is the temperature I generally like to cook at, this is just too hot. So I tend to cook over to this side. I tend to, as you can see, have probes in here as well, so I can tell what the temperature is at grate level, and that's important because I want to see what the temperature where my meat actually is here. So with all these smokers, they have these temperature gauges on them, and obviously you see you've plummeted down as I've had that door open. But the thing is that it's telling you the temperature where this reader actually is, and that's okay if I'm cooking my food in the middle of the air, then that'll be fine. This one isn't too bad because it's at grate level, but as I tend to cook over here, I feel this is the best way because the smoke is going to collect here before it goes out of the chimney stack. So I tend to feel like this is the best place for my meat, and this is where I've got the best results. So I want to know what the temperature is where I'm actually cooking my meat, so that's why I tend to put it there. So the firebox, so this one isn't fully insulated. You can get some that are, but this one isn't. In it I've got a fire basket, and the reason I have a fire basket is because I want to try and keep those coals together as much as possible rather than spreading out. And secondly, if you burn a fire directly on the bottom of the firebox, you're going to do 2 things. Firstly, you're going to rust out the bottom of your firebox because the amount of heat that's going to be sitting on that metal is not going to be happy. And secondly, if you do your fire on the actual bottom of the firebox, you're going to get no airflow under the actual fire itself, so under the coals. So a lot of fireboxes will have a grate on them. I've gone a step further and, like I say, I've got a fire basket made for this particular smoker, and that just helps me keep all the coals close together, so when I add wood split, I've got all that heat in one place. They catch really nice and quickly, and I minimise the amount of dirty smoke that I've got going through. So let's talk about the actual smoke itself, because that is really, really, really important. So you might have heard of something called blue smoke. So blue smoke is basically what we've got coming out of the stack at the moment. You basically can hardly see it. If I go in at a certain angle, I might be able to look up and see that blue sort of veil through the smoke. But as it stands at the moment, you will not see that. All you might see is some sort of shimmering heat coming out of here. And that is exactly what you want. You don't want thick white smoke. Some people think that, you know, more smoke is better because you're getting more smoke on your food. It's completely the opposite. If you burn at what's called a dirty fire, so where either the wood is too green, the temperature's too low, and you get all that white smoke pouring out of the chimney stack, what you're going to find is that your meat will look great, but you have a really acrid taste to it. So when you eat it in your mouth, when you eat that food, you just have a really kind of like dirty, acrid taste, and you really don't want that. So good barbecue is all about maintaining that clear, thin blue smoke, and you do that by controlling a good fire. Okay, so let's talk about wood. So you can only use hardwood in an offset smoker. You can't use fir trees, you can't use anything that's like an evergreen. It's got to be hardwood, and kind of like the most common is going to be your oak, your hickory. You can use fruit woods as well, so apple, cherry, those are fantastic as well. I've got oak here today. I find that readily available for me, and because I can cut it into quite uniform sections and chunks, it actually works really, really well. So you can see I've got a number of pieces sat on the firebox, and the reason I've done that is to preheat them. So if I was to have a fire burning all nice and zappy and it's, you know, churning away, it's doing its thing, and then I add a piece of wood that's cold, you know, what it's going to do is going to take longer for that wood to catch, and while it's catching, it's going to be smouldering and it's going to be pushing white smoke out the stack, and I don't want that. So by preheating them, you can actually see they're starting to smoulder, so they're definitely preheated. But what you can see is that these, when I put them on, will catch in no time at all. The other thing you can see about the wood is that it's pretty much uniform in size. So I have got some smaller pieces and I've got some larger pieces, but generally they're more or less the same length, and I try and keep them as uniform as possible. And the reason that I do that is so it allows me to kind of predict that when I put that piece of wood on, you know, what sort of temperature I'm going to get out of it, how long it's going to burn for before I need to put the next bit of wood on. And so just trying to keep it as uniform as possible just really helps you do that. And like I said, I think I need to turn these over. They're cooking. I wasn't actually going to cook anything in this video today, but it looks like I am. But, you know, I don't think I'm going to eat a bit of wood. But there you go, you might want to chew on it, I don't know. So to preheat my smoker, what I will do, I'll use a charcoal chimney. I fill that up with briquettes. I prefer briquettes because they should give me about 2 hours worth of heat, and it's pretty consistent. With lumpwood charcoal, which you can use, because it's all different sizes and you go big bits, small bits, it's inconsistent. And with this and the whole cooking process, consistency is probably one of the hardest things, but one of the most important things you need to achieve. So I'll get that up to temperature so you've got that grey ash on top, and then I'll add it to the firebox, and from there I'll start adding splits to woods to it, because what you're trying to get to is the point where you've got a really good bed of coals. And having that really good bed of coals is so important. It's so important because when you add that next split to it, you want it to catch quickly, you want it to burn cleanly, and that bed of charcoal is your most important asset in that. If you let your charcoal or your coals burn down too low, then you'll end up, you know, having real difficulties lighting that next split of wood, and your temperature will plummet in here. When you're trying to ignite it, it will smoulder rather than catching nice and cleanly, and you get all that white smoke pumping through your cook chamber, which again you don't want. Right, so you can see these are starting to burn down, so they're actually starting to come into coals. And you definitely need one of these. So this is actually a fire poker, and the reason you need that is because you need to give it a bit of a knock around so you can actually knock that ash off, break down the bits of splits that are breaking down into coals themselves. And when you put the next bit of wood on, you can give it a poke. I mean, generally that's what fire management is burning stuff and poking it. I like burning stuff, so you'll notice that there's quite a lot of coals in here, and to be honest, this fire is a lot bigger than I would actually need to do a cook. So if I look at my temperature gauge at the moment, I haven't got a digital probe in it, but if I look at the temperature gauge at the moment, it's reading in that over 300. And the thing is that one thing you have to do is when you start, there's no meat, there's nothing on here at all at the moment, but basically when you start off your cook for the day, you need to build a larger fire than you actually need. The reason being is that you want to get that pit up to temperature and you take it way beyond where you actually want to cook. So say for example I was going to cook at 275 today, I would let this go as I am past 300, and as I get that really good bed of coals, as I let it die down, I will then be able to dial this in so it'll run at 275, and then I just add splits of wood to maintain it. So I want to talk about airflow. Airflow is probably one of the most important things in controlling your fire. I personally cook with everything open, so the side vents, so where the air's coming in, they will stay completely open, and then the stack vent, that will also stay completely open the whole time that I'm cooking. The reason being is that I want to burn that clean fire, which I mentioned earlier, and the best way to do that is to allow as much air into the system as possible, but you control it by your fire. So once you've got that initial fire built, your pit's up to temp, and I would allow a good hour to make sure you're happy it's running rock steady before you put anything in it. Once it's done on that and it's dialed in, all you're then doing is watching it, adding the split of wood when you need to, and basically just controlling the temperature just by the fuel and the fire itself. So you're just adding a split just to get yourself up that 10 degrees. As you see it start to dip off, if you've got, like I use meter probes, I've also got ink birds as well, and I watch those like a hawk. And as soon as I see that temperature start to trail off, I know it's time to add a split. So as you can see in this fire box, I've actually got a fire basket, and what a fire basket does is basically keeps all your coals together, and that just helps intensify and almost magnify the heat. So whenever you add that next split of wood, it catches really quickly, and you're minimizing the amount of time of white, smoke that you've got going through your chamber. Okay, so I can see the temperature starting to go down a little bit, and this is the time that I need to put on another split. So for the purposes of this, I've left a piece of wood on top of here, and basically I'm just warming that through, if we discussed earlier on. So I'm going to take that off, open this up. You can see that wood, now I'll give it a bit of a bash, it's completely broken down to coals, and that is still crazy hot. So just chuck your split on, give it a whack down, and then before you close this lid, you have to make sure that that split has caught nicely, and you see those flames coming up. So we're in no rush. If you're doing a 10-hour cook, then what's the matter if you're waiting 5 minutes for this to catch properly? And to us, it won't be 5 minutes, it'll probably be about a minute, to be honest. So once you're happy, that's caught really nicely. And you can see in here, the fire basket is doing its job. It's keeping all those coals nice and close together. And now that's nice and cool, we'll close this down, and that'll get back up to temperature. Okay, so the last couple of things I want to chat about really is a bit of troubleshooting, particularly around obviously your fire management. So if you've got loads of smoke, white smoke billowing out of your stack, that means you've got loads of white smoke in here. So it's going to be for a number of reasons. Either the wood that you put on is too green, it hadn't cooled properly when you shut the firebox lid down, or you've choked off too much air. So whether or not you shut the vents down too much on the firebox, or whether or not you put the dampener, close that too much on the stack. So if you've got that, so you've got loads of white smoke coming out the stack, the thing you're going to have to do is open up the cook chamber, open up all the vents, open up the dampener, get as much air going through that system as you possibly can do. Get the split nice and lit again. If you need to, you can buy a leaf blower like this one. So I brought the smallest leaf blower I could buy, and the reason I brought this is that if I want to put a lot of air through something, really give it a blast of oxygen to really burn well, then just giving it a quick blast for this is a really good way to do it. I don't use it all the time, I just use it like when I'm starting a fire I might do it, or if I put on something that I didn't realise it's a bit greener than what I thought and I want to give it a bit of a blast, then I can use this. Alternatively, you can just blow on it. If you haven't got one of these, get a bit of card, give it a wave, or like I say, just blow on it. The other thing that I want to talk about is if your firebox is, or your fire is running too hot. The worst thing you can possibly do is close all the vents down. Because all you're going to do is choke that fire, and again we're going to get back to the white smoke, which we don't want. When worst comes to the worst, if you put too much wood on your fire, well, get some tongs, take a piece of wood out. You know, open up your firebox for a little while, or even the cook chamber if you need to, and just get that temperature back down under control. So I'm sure you've heard the saying, if you're looking, you're not cooking. And most people think that just applies to the cook chamber, so that they think when they open the grate up, all that heat's going to come out, it's going to take ages to recover, and if you keep looking, basically it's going to lengthen your cook and you're going to have that problem with that fluctuations in temperature. Well, the same applies for the firebox. If you're constantly opening it to see whether or not it's still burning all right, or whether or not you need to add another split, then it's going to be exactly the same as keeping it open in the cook chamber. So this has got grates in the side, and basically I peek through that. So as long as I've got flames, as long as the temperature either on the probes or on these are running properly when I want to, I don't even open it. I just keep wood on top of it, keep it all nice and warm, keep it all like preheated so when it's ready you can bang it on. But apart from that, I will only open that firebox when I need to add a split. So if you think about it, the purpose of you as the pit master is to run a consistent temperature in your cook. If you think about what your cooker does, your oven does in your kitchen, you set it to that temperature and it'll just run at that temperature. What you don't realise is that it'll cook for a bit, switch off because it gets too hot, then it'll add the temperature and it will keep going like that. But generally what it's trying to do is maintain that temperature at wherever you set it. And you're trying to do it exactly the same in your smoker. So if you're trying to cook at 275, it's all right to go, you know, 10, 15, 20 degrees either side of that for a short period of time. But really, you want to stay in that 275 range. If you cook and you're dropping down to 200, you're going up to 350, you're cooking at 250, you're all over the shop. What will happen is that not only will your cook take so much longer to do, so you could extend it by an hour or two or even longer, but your food just will not taste very nice at the end of it. What you really need to do is just maintain that consistent temperature. Go for that 275, 225, whatever you're cooking at, and then just try and stick at it. And the way that you're going to do that is basically by getting a comfy chair, sitting next to your firebox, monitoring that temperature, whether that be by the gauges, or I use meters. I've also got Inkbird's digital thermometers as well, which I stick in there just so I can see what the temperature is at what particular part of the grate, and then I know when I need to add that next bit of wood. And as I said earlier, by having a consistent split of wood, you know that by adding that piece of wood, once it catches, it's going to give you another 5 or 10 degrees, and it's going to be that for about 20 minutes. And then you know that, right, okay, I've got to put the next bit on, and I've got to put the next bit of wood on. And you're just going through it, and you're just nursing it around. You're treating it, you're literally sitting there, it's your buddy for the day, and you're just sitting there and you're maintaining those temperatures. You've been watching Big Al's Barbecue. If you like this video, please subscribe, put your notifications on, check out my other videos, and if you've got any thoughts or comments, please leave those below. I always try and reply to everyone who's taken the time to watch my videos and make a comment. Until the next video, I'll see you then.